My father never sat with his back to a door in any room for 31 years. My mother has finally told me why. I noticed it when I was 7. Every restaurant my dad would stop in the doorway and scan the room before he picked a seat. That one, he'd say, and it was always the same kind of chair, back to the wall, eyes on the entrance. Once at my cousin's wedding, the only open seat put his back to the hall. He stood the whole reception. My mom brought him a plate and he ate standing, watching the doors. Dad, just sit, I said. I was maybe 12. I'm fine standing, he said, and he smiled, but his eyes never left the room. I stopped asking. You learn which questions your parents don't answer. Last month, he had a stroke. Small one, they said, but he's in a rehab facility now. And for the first time in my life, he's in a bed he can't choose the position of. That's when my mother told me. We were in the hospital cafeteria. She sat with her back to the door and I realized I'd never once seen her do that either. Your father was a witness, she said quietly, before you were born. A witness to what? A man he worked for. Frank D'Alessio. Your dad did the books for his construction company. He didn't know at first what the money really was. What was it? It doesn't matter what it was. What matters is your dad found out and he went to the police and he testified. She turned her coffee cup in a slow circle. D'Alessio told him, in the courtroom, in front of the judge, I'll be looking for you. Then he went to prison for 19 years. 19 years, I said. So he got out 11 years ago. She wouldn't look at me. We changed our name once before you were born. That's why your dad never, that's why the chairs. He always wanted to see the door before the door saw him. I felt sick. 11 years. My whole childhood, this man had been walking around free. Did D'Alessio ever find us? She was quiet for a long time. Once. Mom, you were 9. A man came to the house asking for donations for a fire department that didn't exist. Your father talked to him at the door for 2 minutes. Then he closed it and he called someone and we drove to your grandmother's for a week. She finally looked up. We never saw him again. I always thought your father scared him off. I never asked what he said on that phone. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I drove to the rehab facility early. I wanted to sit with him, to tell him I knew, to tell him he could stop watching the door now. The nurse at the front desk frowned at her screen when I gave his name. He already has a visitor, she said. Signed in about 20 minutes ago. Said he was an old friend. Something in my chest dropped straight through the floor. What was the name? Frank, she said. Frank, she squinted. D'Alessio. I ran. Room 214, end of the hall. I hit the door with my shoulder and stopped dead. My father was sitting up in the bed. He was calm. And in the chair beside him, back to the door, which is how I got in without him seeing, sat an old man in a gray coat, hunched, both hands flat on his knees. Close the door, son, my dad said. His voice was steady, the steadiest I'd heard it since the stroke. Frank and I are catching up. Dad, I said close it. I closed it. The old man didn't turn around. You found the address, my dad said to him, conversational. Took you 11 years. I'm dying, Sal, the old man said, and his voice was thin, ruined. Lungs, I wanted to see your face before I go. That's all. That's all, my dad repeated. You cost me 19 years. You cost yourself 19 years. My dad reached over to the bedside table, slow, and picked up a little emergency call button and held it up so both of us could see his thumb resting on it. 9 years ago, you came to my door dressed like a fireman. I recognized you before you finished your first sentence. You know what I did after you left? D'Alessio said nothing. I called a detective named Ruiz. I've called him every year since, on the same day, to tell him you're still watching me. He's got a file thicker than your arm. Restraining order you violated to walk in here today. He's 4 minutes out. My dad's thumb pressed down. The button lit red. I've been sitting with my back to a wall for 31 years, Frank. You walked into a room and sat down without checking the door. That was always the difference between us. The old man's shoulders sank, and my father, for the first time in my life, leaned back against the pillows and let his eyes close.